Yeah, let's start again. Okay, so say that again about the Yuga system.
Yeah, it's the cyclical version of human history. So most ancient societies believe that human civilization and our consciousness, it moves up and down in cycles and that it doesn't move in a straight line from primitive cavemen to the modern civilization as we have been told by all our scientists and historians.
Right.
So this is the this cycle of evolution and devolution is called the Yuga cycle, and it was known by different names by different cultures. In India, it is called Yuga cycle. The Greeks called it the Great Year or the Platonic Year. The Maya referred to the four previous suns. The Hopi talk of the four worlds, and so on.
And uh, so in this system, we pretty much we break up time into four zones. Like uh, we in the West, we call it the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. And in India, they call it the Satra, the Treta, the Devapara, and the Kali Yuga. And we have been in the Kali Yuga for a long time now, and we're all suffering from the PTSD and the stress and the horror, really, of the last thousands of years. And in your book, you point out that what I don't know. Are you using the Sri Yukteswar? You're not really using his system. You're using sort of his system, but you kind of put a variance on it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we have an ascending and a descending system where we go from the top and then we descend down to the bottom and then we descend back up to the top again. And what you're saying, and which I agree with, is that, and my work on the Cross of Henday confirms this, is that we are now at the very kind of the bottom edge of this thing and we're starting to ascend back up moving into the Dvapara Yuga and leaving the Kali Yuga behind, thank goodness. And, and explain your timing here. So you say that we went into the golden age right after the Younger Dryas, right? Which happened about 12,000 years ago.
No, the younger dryas was basically a reset. So that's the it's a longer term reset, which the Greeks called cataclysmus, which means
Right.
the cleansing of the world by ice and water.
Yes.
And now, as we are finding out, there was a great flood which happened during the younger dryas period, and
Right.
it was probably caused by comet impacts.
Yep.
And after the Younger Dryas period ended, that's when we entered the descending cycle.
Right.
And the first era in that cycle would be the Treta Yuga or the Silver Age. So the Golden Age was done and over with prior to the Younger Dryas period. And
Right.
then we entered the descending cycle of consciousness with the Silver Age, and then the Bronze Age or the Dwapara, and then two back-to-back Kali ages or the two
Yeah.
back-to-back Iron Ages.
Right.
The first one being the descending Kali Yuga, which during which time there's a decline both in material prosperity as well as our spiritual consciousness.
Yep.
And then the second part being the ascending Kali Yuga, when there's a revival of materialism and a revival in our material conditions of life, but the decline in our spiritual consciousness continues throughout the ascending Kali Yuga. And right now we are at the stage when the consciousness has declined the most that it could have, and we are about to come out of that period.
Yeah, you're pointing out and you know I've been following Sri Yukteswar's work for a long time, and I never really thought until I read your book that we went through two Kali Yugas. I've never really considered it before, the descending Kali Yuga and then the ascending Kali Yuga. So the human race has been through essentially 6,000 years of pure hell, really. Um, and we can feel it. You can feel the division, the strife, the everybody's arguing with everyone, and but you could also feel like the ascension going on. Like people are sick and tired of war. You can just feel it. They just don't want any more war. We're done with it. We look at Ukraine, we look at Gaza, and we say, no, this has just got to stop. It's got to end. And you can kind of feel this upward pressure going on in humanity right now where um, we're hyper aware of the conflict that's going on. We're also hyper aware that really we don't have to do it this way. And then you look at like some of the statements that have been coming out recently from Elon Musk about how you're not going to have to work in 10 years. Just what he's saying right now, that work is going to be gone in 10 years, which I don't know how that could happen, but he's smarter than I am, so I'm listening to him. And um, the technology also that's happening right now, it's like it's technology that is not it's technology that relieves our workload. In other words, AI, yes, it has its bad things about it, but also, you know, the day-to-day work life of people can be relieved now to a certain degree where it wasn't before. So you can kind of see the first like glimmers of the light coming through the clouds of the something is changing and you can feel it. I was wondering, do you ever, are you familiar? This is from my work, but I don't know if you're familiar with it, so I wanted to talk to you about it. Are you familiar with how do I say this? The, so the Earth, the solar system oscillates up and down, right? And it goes behind the plane of the galaxy. All right. And my theory is that the when we go behind the plane of the galaxy, we no longer are getting the galactic emanations from galactic center, which and so everything goes dark while we're behind that plane of mush and rock and stars that are on the plane of the galaxy. And now we're rising up. We know this is true. We're rising up above that plane and we're getting more and more galactic emanations. And frankly, the sun used to be yellow and now it's white. And I don't know why that is either. But I wonder if you ever looked at the idea that the Yugas are like part of the oscillation of the solar system within the galactic plane.
Yeah, I looked at that idea, but things that the timing, the cycle duration for that is around 60 million years, which doesn't tie up with the Yuga cycle of around 26,000 years. So so I let that idea go because that cycle seems to be tied up with a even larger cycle of time known in Vedic texts, which is called the day and night of Brahma,
Yeah.
which extends for 26 million years. And we know from paleontology that every 26 million years you have a mass extinction of life on Earth. So that kind of ties up with that 26 million year cycle. So this up and down oscillation could be tied up with that bigger cycle
The
and
bigger
not the
time.
smaller Yuga cycle. And my contention was that we know that the centers of galaxies they go on and off. There's a cycle called an Aegean cycle. So sometimes the central black hole it becomes very active and
Yes.
starts radiating enormous amounts of EM radiation, and then the nucleus becomes so brilliant that the light from the nucleus cuts through the entire galaxy, and then you can see the nucleus from even the Earth.
Yep.
It becomes so luminous and it kind of appears like a second sun,
Yep.
which a lot of ancients talk about, the
That's
sun
right.
of wisdom or the central sun
That's
or
right.
the great sun and so on. So my contention was that the Yuga cycle is actually controlled by the central black hole going on and off over a 26,000 year cycle.
Right.
And when it goes on, that's when we go into the cycle of ascension, and when it goes off, that's when we go into the cycle of decline.
Yeah.
And the great and an interesting piece of news is that last year in 2024, the James Webb Space Telescope it found out that over the last 1 year, the center of our galaxy has been emitting brilliant flashes of light in the visible spectrum, and our black hole hasn't done that for ages. It's never done that before. which tells me that there could be an activation of the central black hole going on right now, which could be driving a lot of things that are happening on Earth as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so the other point I want to make sure that we touch on is that a lot of people familiar with the Yuga cycle, they think that, the Kali Yuga is going to last 432,000 years, and which really would make the whole Yuga cycle really not very important to us since we only live like 75 years. So you're can you please explain to me how you came up with this 24,000 ascending, descending Yuga cycle and why that makes a lot more sense for us in the human condition?
Well, first of all, that aligns with the data that we get from other cultures. You can't have a separate Yuga cycle for India and a separate one for Greece and a separate one for the Mayas. There's
Yeah,
one for the whole world. And when I was looking at these different doctrines, it's the 12,000 year cycle that seemed to be the one that everyone was talking about. The Persians, for instance, they talk about a Yuga cycle of 12,000 years. And then when you add the two halves together, that becomes 24,000 years.
yeah,
The Greeks were also talking about each age being of around 3,000 years duration. And in Indian texts like the Mahabharata or the Laws of Manu, we have a 12,000 year cycle. But in some of the other texts, that was multiplied by 360 because some wise guys said that it's 1 year is equivalent to 360 years of humans.
right.
And then he multiplied it by 360 and converted that into this humongous number of 432,000 years, which doesn't make sense even in the context of the known history of human civilization.
No, it doesn't. It's actually kind of ridiculous. Um, yeah, so you say that will you please explain the 2,700 year cycle and then the 300 or 150 years on each side intermittent period, and that we're actually going into one of those 150-year intermittent periods for us?
Yeah, so in this 12,000 year half cycle, we have four ages of 3,000 years each.
Right.
Now, it's not exactly 3,000 years in the sense that the actual duration of the Yuga is 2,700 years. And then this followed by a period of transition when the older civilization kind of goes through a period of collapse,
Yeah.
and then it's replaced by a very different civilization after a period of 300 years. And that is something that we can also see from our known history. For instance, if you look at the current ascending Kali Yuga, which as per this system started at around 700 BCE, that was the time we started what is known as the Iron Age. So the ascending Kali Yuga is basically what historians known as the Iron Age. And in the 300 or let's say 400 odd period before the Iron Age, the entire edifice of the Bronze Age civilizations across the world had collapsed. Not very little was carried forward from the older civilizations like the Sumerians or the Indus Valley or the civilizations in Mycenae or other places. So that was the period of transition between the descending Kali Yuga and the ascending Kali Yuga, and in historical terms, that's kind of the transition between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. So similarly, the when the Bronze Age started at around 3600 BCE, it started all of a sudden in most places around the world. In Egypt or the Indus Valley, Mesopotamia, it all started around 3600, 3500 BCE. And all the Neolithic civilizations that existed prior to that disappeared. We really have to dig deep down to find the traces of those Neolithic cultures. So again, there was a period of transition prior to that, and those cultures disappeared, and the Bronze Age civilization started. So we seem to have this intermittent reset of civilization on an almost global scale after a period of around 2,700 years.
Yeah, so what is your date for the start of the golden age, the last golden age?
Oh, okay. So for that, if 10,876 was the period when it ended,
When it,
and there were two back-to-back golden ages. So then you add 6,000 years to that, you get around 24,876. That was the start of the golden age, and you had two back-to-back ones. just like you had two back-to-back Iron Ages.
So is there a cause for in the golden age for the break between the ascending and the descending? Is there something that causes the descending to start happening?
Yeah, that's what I talked about. I think it's the central black hole going on and off.
Yeah,
I think at the end of the golden age, the central black hole shut down and the radiation from the galactic center started to kind of decline in a gradual manner
I
because the
agree.
radiation that had already left it, it kept on, declining gradually. It doesn't go off all of a sudden.
Right.
And so it went, so the radiation reaching us came down slowly. And as a result, now the radiation from the central black hole is from the entire EM spectrum, right from radio waves to gamma waves. And we know that high frequency radiation like X-rays and gamma rays, they can cause genetic mutations. And I believe it's this mutating ability of the light from the galactic center that makes us, it makes us lose our physical size. We become smaller in size, which is actually a historical fact. We have become smaller in size physically over the
Definitely.
last 12,000 years.
Yep.
Our cranial capacity declines. And
Yep.
that is also something that has happened over the last 12,000 years. We have lost around 10 to 17% cranial volume over the last 12,000 years. And, anthropologists very rarely talk about these things, but these are actual valid scientific data, and you can find it in journals. But you never find it discussed on any mainstream media that both physically and from the cranial volume perspective, we have declined over 12,000 years. Whereas they always tell us that we have been, increasing in our cranial capacity has been increasing from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens over the last 2 million years, which is the reason for our increased intelligence. Whereas in the last 12,000 years, we have lost exactly the same amount of cranial capacity that we apparently gained from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens. So that tells you that this goes in cycles. We become bigger physically, our cranial capacity increases, and even our lifespan fluctuates in a sinusoidal manner. Because over the Bronze Age, our lifespan was gradually going down, and it had hit around 50 years to 45 years during the Ptolemaic period in Egypt. And since then, it has been gradually going up. And didn't happen because of any vaccines or any kind of medications. It happened naturally due
Yep.
to natural cosmic factors.
So when did we enter into the ascending Kali Yuga? What year was that? Around
That was 676 BC, around 700 BC, let's say. That's
600
basically
BC.
the beginning of the Iron Age civilizations across the world, really.
Well, you can really see if you look at history that, yeah, the world started actually improving around then from a very dark, dark place. Um, we've been gaining materialism and traveling around the world, which we weren't doing before. And wars became much more technological. And, um, and yeah, you can actually see that in the history. So
And you also had a number of new spiritual leaders coming up during
that's
that
right.
time period and laying the
Buddha.
framework for the new faiths and the new religions that emerged in the Iron Age.
That's right. Buddha and Jesus and yeah, and kind of teaching this new philosophy of, you know, cool it out, baby, take it easy because the Kali Yuga's got a long way to go. So, you can get excited all you want, but I'm just going to sit under a tree and breathe because there's nothing you can do about the Kali Yuga. And I think that's exactly right. I think these new religions were formed to calm us down for the 3,000 years that were still going to happen, which we're now coming out of. So let's talk about coming out of it, because that's really what I find to be the most exciting part of your book is that you're saying that this year, 2025, we began emerging out of the Kali Yuga and going into the transition period, which you're saying we're in right now, which is actually frankly, very dangerous time period because what we have here going on is we have part of humanity is living in the Dvara Yuga and part of humanity is still living in the Kali Yuga. And I say this a lot because it helps ease kind of the confusion that's going on right now. So, the people that are in the Dvapara Yuga are looking at the people that are living in the Kali Yuga in this transition period and saying, you people are crazy. You people are nuts. What are you doing? You're destroying the world, you're destroying people, you're hurting everybody. You need to stop. And the people in the Kali Yuga are saying, you people are crazy. You Dvara Yuga people are crazy. You know, you all love and light, and you think everything's going great, and you don't really you're not realistic about the world. And so that's the nature of the conflict that's going on all over the world right now, and it's happening big time here in America, where half of us are just we're done with it. We're done with all the BS that's been going on. We're done with all of it, and the other half want to double down on everything. They want to increase the violence, they want to increase the confusion. And so this is going to be the nature of the next 150 years, right? It's going to be this pretty nasty confrontation.
Yeah, when you're saying that it's half and half, I think that's very optimistic. I think the vast majority of the people are living in the Kali Yuga paradigm, very
Yeah,
strongly attached to materialism, to lies, and to division, and to hatred,
yeah,
and to all kinds of selfish behavior. And that is it's not just the wars. I mean, if you look at even at the normal social environment around you, you'll find that people are so obsessed with their materialism, that they don't even believe in the existence of the soul. They don't believe in the existence of a purpose in human life, the existence of other dimensions of reality. They don't believe in the teachings that have been left behind. They think that all of that is impractical. To follow the teachings of, let's say, in India, to follow the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita would be considered impractical in the present day, because the focus is completely on acquiring material wealth at any cost. So this is the predominant mindset across the world right now, and it's only a very small percentage of people who have been able to kind of extricate themselves from this constant need for wealth and power, and for sensual stimulation. And because if you're obsessed with that, that's when you start acting on it, and you don't really care about how you get to your how you attain your desires, because it's this obsession, the infatuation with these things. So, and that is everywhere right now. And this is the big conflict that is now going on. It's only a small percentage of people who are trying to come out of this state of mind, and to say that no, there's a bigger purpose, that we are capable of much more, that we have a soul, and that soul is the repository of love and compassion and selflessness, and wisdom and knowledge and all higher virtues. And we need to tap into that and to reflect that through our speech and our actions and in our everyday life. But it's only a very small percentage of people who are doing that. When I go out there in the world, it's very hard to come across such people these days anymore. So the conflict is actually, I would say, around 90% versus 10%, and not really
that's
50 versus 50, even less than that, maybe.
probably
So it's going to be a very big and powerful shift, because the cosmos itself is changing, the energies are changing, and we have to change along with that. You cannot fight the universe. When the changes are happening, you have to go with the flow. You have to understand why these changes are happening, where we are headed, and how we can best align with this energetic shift and place ourselves in the best position to kind of ride these energies. We can't keep on hanging on to the Kali Yuga paradigms anymore.
really well said. Yeah, that's kind of the reason I wanted you on, actually, because I know a lot of people that, the very small percentage of people that have changed, and they watch my show, and they're feeling very lonely right now. They don't understand. They're alienated from the Kali Yuga. They don't want it. They don't like it, and they want it to go away. And then we're all suffering on a collective level with PTSD from the horrors of the Kali Yuga. I mean, it's like being in a war. It's like you wake up every night and you're just experiencing all the memories of all the things that have happened, and you want your family to be safe, and the world is like really not in a good place. But that's about to change, right? That's
That's
good.
about to change, but we have to, the onus is on us. The energies I believe the positive energies, the subtle energies have already started coming in, because when I read the news that the central black hole is in the process of getting activated, I knew that the positive changes are always coming in. But you need to be aligned with that. If you are still fixated on Kali Yuga paradigms, then you're not even going to feel that or observe that. And if you're constantly, caught up in the drama and the negativity of the media, and that is everywhere right now. Every day you open the news, there's some more division, there's some more hatred, there's some more false flag attacks, some more lies, and some more manipulation, and people are getting caught up in that. They want to put their point of view across and say no. They're getting into arguments on social media, forming groups, and social media is so pervasive right now, so they're going into the social media argument, and that argument is never going to end, because people who are caught up in that paradigm, you can't change them through arguments,
That's
right? You have to first change yourself, and you have to radiate that, and they might get inspired by that, and then they might figure, oh, you know what, there's another way to go about things. And so this is a time for self-reflection, for introspection, for letting go of past trauma. There's so much trauma that people are carrying from their relationships in the Kali Yuga, and from the past, over the 6,000 years of the Kali Yuga. So it's about letting go of the attachment to the negativity in the outside world, and trying to find out your soul purpose. What am I here for? Why did I incarnate on this blue dot? I mean, what am I doing here at all? Right? So the bigger existential questions, those are the ones that we need to start asking right now, so that we can then calm ourselves down, find the answers, change
yeah.
ourselves from within. And then once we change ourselves, then we are in a better position to help others, to guide others, because we can't give out anything of any value unless we have first gone through the transformation ourselves.
Really well said, and that's exactly my philosophy. I believe that that you can in your own personal world, you can create maybe not the golden age, but at least the bronze age within your family and within your house. Um, I try to put a lot of really nice art in my house and sculptures and beautiful rugs on the ground, and my wife and I just try to make our house into this like very loving experience, so that at least within our own little place we're experiencing that world of the future, and then the outside world is kind of we kind of keep it out. And I think that's really what you have to do right now is build your own personal Devapara Yuga, and kind of eschew the outside world until the outside world kind of gains up on us. And I think if you're sensitive, you can see that the outside world is changing. It is. It's maybe slow, but it is slow. We call it here in America the Great Noticing. It's just started like a month ago. It's all over the internet now. The Great Noticing. You're like, well, what are we noticing? Well, we're noticing the corruption, the destruction of value, of good things. And it's just now spreading and you can feel it. And also there's this kind of um, a collective, I don't know where if it's in the rest of the world, but in America right now, there's this collective, we don't need authority anymore. We don't need you to tell us what to do anymore. We're going to decide on our own what is reality, what is truth, and we don't need, it's a very small percentage, 10% at the most. But that 10% is the only 10% that matters, because they're the ones that are actually out on the edge doing things, where the rest are just kind of doing the Kali Yuga thing of following everybody and what authority says. But that 10% is growing and you can feel it. You can feel, and they're more vocal about what they believe than everybody else. And so they become the the leading edge of wherever it is that we're going, and they're not going to stop. Uh, the each world event causes the great noticing to get higher up. And so they try to battle it by creating false flags and different events to try to stop the great noticing from going on. But all they're doing in reality is every time they do one of these things, they just increase the great noticing. And so they're caught in this. You can actually see it if you look okay, I'm not being political here because I don't want to go politics, but if you look at Netanyahu, right, the leader of Israel, right, you can see that he's caught up in the Kali Yuga, and he keeps doing Kali Yuga stuff, thinking it's going to impress us, but all it does is make everything that they're doing look worse. And so they continue to play Kali Yuga games when they no longer work. And I think that that is where we are at right now. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's going to be a significant percentage who are going to resist the these new energies that are coming in. They're going to resist aligning with their soul virtues. They're going to resist aligning with the environment and with the people around them. And they're going to continue with Kali Yuga paradigms and beliefs and technologies and ways of doing things. Whereas the small percentage is going to kind of wake up and try to wake others up. And since the energies are shifting, we are having this great noticing, which I can also call the great surfacing of truth.
Yep.
Because what is happening is that every time one of these events happen, a lot of truth comes to the surface, and even veterans are like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Even though you know that they're lying and manipulating all the time, but even then, new truths will keep on surfacing. And this will happen not only at a collective level, but also at an individual level. Yeah, at your own level, you'll find that new truths are coming to the surface of your own mind. You are realizing new things about yourself or your family or your work or your environment. So this is the time of rediscovery of truth. And some of that truth is going to make you very angry and frustrated. I know that's the initial stage of awakening when you find that everything is a lie, everything is manipulated, everything is manufactured. That's the time of disillusionment. And a lot of people get caught up in that phase for a long period of time. You're like angry and frustrated for a long period of time. But then at some point, you need to let that go. And you need to ask yourself, what next? How do I make things better? Where am I going? Where is our civilization going? And how do I make things better? And that's when you start tapping into who you truly are at your core and start bringing your gifts to the world. I mean, each of us have to bring our gifts to the world. Only then we can make it better. We can't keep on fighting the old system with the old methods. The new system will have new methods, and the new methods of the new system is through information, through inspiration, and through elevation. You can't continue this process of degradation and diminishing people all the time. It's a time to elevate and inspire and not to fight and quarrel and degrade and diminish all the time. So these are the changes that people are going through and will continue to go through as we move into this period of transition. And the environment is also changing. I mean, you had this, and I said that in my book that we are going to a transition which the Greeks call ekpyrosis, or the cleansing by fire.
Yeah.
And last couple of years, the fires have been really powerful, and we've been having these earthquakes and volcanoes and very powerful wildfires, and the storms are also getting more powerful and more dangerous. So it's a time of environmental cleansing as well. And nobody really knows what's going to happen when it comes to the environment, what's going to happen next. But the planet itself is changing. The planetary energies are changing. The Earth itself is going through its own cleansing process. So it's like a collective cleansing going on right now at an individual level, at a collective level, at an environmental level. All of that is happening right now. And I think I said in my book, I said that 2025 March is when Kali Yuga ended,
Yeah.
and 2025 has actually been a period of a year of very powerful changes at a global level and an individual level.
Yeah, it's so funny because Trump got elected, which was kind of a surprise. And then he started saying that we're in the golden age. I'm like, wait, what? What? What is he saying? How does he know this? Right? I don't know if he follows any of this or not, but I suspect he might. Um, yeah, I agree with you. And, about 2020, I was a filmmaker and I ran all the production at Gaia TV for years. And then I kind of backed off in 2018 because of an illness. And and then in 2023, I started getting back into making films and stuff again. And I don't know why, because I really was kind of done with that part of my life. And now I'm working on this, and I financed it myself and everything, a 7-part series about what you're talking about. And I don't even know if I will ever even get it on TV. And I don't care because I've decided that I'm going to spend all of my time and energy trying to make this future that's coming and try to tell people about this future that's coming. And I don't care about the money anymore. It's just the weirdest thing in the world. As soon as I decided to like begin to help tell humanity about what's about to happen, I lost all of my material obsessions. I lost, it's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And after a lifetime of being obsessed with materiality, now I don't care at all about it at all. And it's a great relief, to be honest with you, to no longer care about it. And so you're essentially an optimist, right? You think that we're moving into a great time, right?
Well, the transition period is going to be pretty turbulent because
Be
the
rough.
older paradigm is going to collapse, and the process of collapse is not easy,
No.
because it affects everybody at a social level, at economic level. So it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a great time after we get through the transition, but the next few years, I think the next decade, a decade and a half, will be pretty rough for a lot of people, especially those who are still clinging to Kali Yuga beliefs and ideologies. Those who have let those ideologies go, and those who are trying to kind of help in the rebirth of this new age, the age that is coming, they are actually going to feel, I believe, new pulses of energy that's going to help them in their path, in their purpose, and might give them new feelings of, I would say, bliss and satisfaction that they haven't experienced before. So it's going to be different for different people. A small subset of people might think, wow, this is fantastic. And a large subset of people might actually be miserable because of this process of collapse.
All right, so let's forget everybody that's like over 40 because I mean, they don't really matter in what we're talking about. Let's talk about people under 40 right now. What what can they do to understand what it is we're saying? I mean, what is there something that they can change in their life uh or because they're going to be the future and they've frankly been really screwed over, I think. In America, they can't buy houses anymore. They're not getting married. They're not even having children. It's absolutely horrifying. And I really would like that to stop. I would really like young people to understand that there is a really bright future for them if they just change their mindset.
Yeah, but the changing of the mindset is so difficult because we have been brought up in this linear paradigm, and a lot of people think that we are at the pinnacle of civilization. So, and they don't really understand these cosmic factors, the consciousness factors, the factor that we have been in the darkness, actually. We have been lied to and manipulated and exploited for a very long period of time. So, it's a time of relearning first. I mean, you need to get in tune with the ancient wisdom, with the ancient knowledge of these cycles. So it's a time of relearning and then reconnecting to the soul, to your heart, to the environment, to the world, and of remembrance of what was happening in the past and how what is the kind of age that we're going into. So it's a very big, I would say, transformation period, and a lot of people haven't even started on that. So I think it's gonna be difficult, and I can't give a single point solution to these kind of problems that are happening now and which might get exaggerated or might increase in the future because with maybe with these kind of technologies that are coming in, with AI coming and replacing jobs, you might have more people who are jobless and dependent on state, or funds or some kind of social security or whatever, and that would reduce their purchasing power even more. That would also reduce their independence, because if you're getting state funding, it will be like, you can't say this, you can't do that. There's going to be more surveillance and more control. So while AI has certain advantages, it is a technology that can be used to surveil and control people at a more, at a deeper level. It can be used to hide the truth even better, because let's say you are using ChatGPT and you start thinking that ChatGPT is the know-it-all, and then ChatGPT tells you certain things, and you're like, okay, ChatGPT said it, so it must be true. That's the kind of dependence that you might develop on AI systems in future, and then you get cut off from the truth even more. And then, of course, the environmental effect of AI technologies is tremendous. It takes a huge amount of power and water to basically build these systems. So I think it's gonna be hard. I don't think it's gonna be easy. The shift is going to be easy. You have to look at everything very critically. Everything has a positive aspect and a negative aspect.
Yep.
We can't continue with technologies that do so much harm to the environment. We can't continue with
Yeah.
a lot of pharmaceutical companies. They carry out these animal testings, and nobody seems to be bothered about it. And these animal testings are horrible, and we are
Horrible.
so depending on these pharma products, and the pharma products themselves are so horrible. They make you dependent, they cause other kinds of problems, and so many people are addicted to this kind of medicines. We need a different healing system. How
Yes.
is that going to come about? Right? So there are big issues at every level in practically every industry, and the kind of pollution that we are creating in every industry, it's not sustainable.
Yep.
So has to be a big shift. We just need to see how it happens. I don't know how it's going to happen. Maybe part will be dictated by nature, part will be dictated by, global geopolitics. I don't know. We'll have to see how it happens.
Yeah, I recently changed my medical insurance company, and they called me up and they said, "We have several questions that we need to ask you." So I go, "Okay." They go, "What pharmaceutical drugs are you on?" I go, "None." And they go, "Oh, come on. What are you on? What are you taking?" I go, "I'm not taking anything. I wouldn't take that crap. No matter what you gave me, I wouldn't take it." And they really, it was a 10-minute argument about that they did not believe me that I was not taking any pharmaceutical drugs. And then I told my wife, and she said, I got in the same argument with them. They would not believe me. And I thought, my God, is everybody on pharmaceutical drugs? And I guess they are. And so, let's discuss here before we go. What do you think is you described it beautifully in your book. Um, what's the Satya Yuga, the Golden Age? What's that like? What's it like when in 10,000 years from now, when we're finally in it? What's it going to be like?
Well, even though the golden age will come after, let's say, another 6,000 odd years and then extend for another 6,000 years,
Right.
the entire ascending cycle is kind of like a golden age, because the entire ascending cycle is when you're growing in soul consciousness. So you're growing in your understanding of yourself. You're radiating your virtues. And when everybody does that, can you imagine what life would be on earth if everybody is radiating love and compassion and selflessness and
Nice.
wisdom, knowledge, and joy and bliss, and nobody is fighting against each other. There's no strife, there's no discord. The environment is giving us in abundance, because the environment is also shifting along with these energies. You get all the food that you want, you get everything that you want. So it's a time of abundance. It's a time of abundance of spirit, of abundance of love, abundance of natural prosperity. And it's a time when people will shun any kind of action that causes either men to become greedy or depraved or violent, or in any action that can cause harm to the environment or to any other animal or being within the environment. So that is the soul consciousness, that is the higher consciousness. And when there's higher consciousness, there's utopia. And that is what the entire ascending cycle is about. So the descending cycle was when we moved from soul consciousness to ego consciousness, and all the egoic desires and no, the proclivities, they began to dominate our mind. And then the ascending cycle is when we move away from the ego into soul consciousness, into heart alignment. And that's when you get into the ascending cycle, when you don't have these kind of problems that you face now. There'll be less diseases because of this new energies, this high frequency radiation. It actually kills off harmful germs. So you'll have less diseases, you'll live longer, you'll be bigger in size, you'll be able to do more work, although there won't be any need to do a lot of work. You'll be manifesting a lot of what we call higher mental faculties or siddhis. These higher mental faculties, like intuition or clairvoyance, or even having out of body experiences, the ability to heal any disease on your own, or even to, our texts tell us that you can even increase or decrease your size. If you're really powerful, you can increase or decrease your size. You can willfully manipulate the forces of nature to carry out miraculous tasks. But none of that would be guided by selfish interest. All of that would be done for the welfare of people. Anything that you do in a higher cycle, you do for the good of all. You don't do it for your own profit. And in the Kali Yuga, what happens is everything that we do is for our own profit, and we don't really care what kind of effect it has on other people or on the environment, which is why we are stuck here right now. So the ascending cycle is one of expansion of spirit, and descending cycle is one of diminishing of spirit.
And we're in the transition age right now between the two. I think you're right. I can feel that you're right. And the people around me feel that that's going on. And so I think it's a wonderful time to be alive. And, if you can just get through the conflict of the two yugas battling each other at the moment, I think that we are on our way to a much better place.
Yes, we are, and this is the time when all of us have this grand chance to evolve, to transform, to bring to align with our soul purposes, to manifest what we want to manifest without really considering the outcomes. We don't really want to focus on what the outcome of my effort would be, but just to manifest my desires and my potential and serve the welfare of the world. It's a time of service. It is not the time to become selfish. It is the time to be of service. And we will also transform with the energies. And it's going to be a grand journey, a roller coaster of a ride, both positives and negatives. But as long as we understand what's happening, I think a lot of people will have a tremendous experience.
Yeah, so everybody, the world looks dark and dour, but actually there is a glimmer of light. The sun's starting to rise above the horizon. The world will get better. Don't be so pessimistic. Uh, and to be honest with you, the powers that be want you to be pessimistic. They want you to wake up every day in a depression. They want you to have this dark feeling about the world uh, because it reflects how they view the world. That's how they view the world. And they want you to view the world the same way. And we have to resist. And we have to say, no, no, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to be that kind of person anymore. I'm going to reflect the coming age that's coming. And I think it's really incredible. Great time to be alive.
It
Okay.
is, it is. Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on, Bibhu Dev Misra. It's Yuga Shift, the end of the Kali Yuga, and the impending planetary transformation. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere else that you can find a good book. It's really worth reading. It's long, which I really loved. It wasn't like a 200-page book. It was just long, deep, delving into the Yuga system. If you want to understand the Yuga system, it's a great book for understanding the Yuga system and the the periodicity of time and the cyclic nature of time, and that time is not a beginning and an end. Time is a circle, and it goes around and around and around forever. And And I just really want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope your listeners find our discussion interesting.
Oh, they will. I imagine you're going to get a bunch of book sales out of this. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'm Jay Weidner. This is Reality Check, and thank you.